Caregiving can sometimes feel like an impossible struggle. Caregivers may be torn between taking care of loved ones and trying to maintain balance in life. The good news is that it doesn't have to be that way. The Caring Generation with host Pamela D Wilson is here to focus on the conversation of caring. You're not alone. In fact, you're in exactly the right place to share stories and learn tips and resources to help you and your loved ones. So now, please welcome the host of The Caring Generation, Pamela D Wilson.
I'm Pamela D Wilson, caregiving expert, speaker, consultant, and guardian of the Caring Generation. Thank you for joining me for this week's show, episode 228 in year 8 of this podcast. This week, we're talking about rethinking elder care, when taking care of elderly parents at home stops working. I'll share a few red flags and early warning signs that in-home care provided by a family caregiver or even an outside agency managed by a family caregiver may require a bit of rethinking, reassessment, and a revised plan because keeping your elderly parents at home has become impractical, unsustainable, or just too risky. Before jumping into this week's topic, please, if you find this podcast helpful, click the like or follow button on your podcast app. Make the time, add a positive comment about the show to help me and the Caring Generation podcast grow and reach more listeners looking for caregiver solutions and strategies around the areas of health, finances, legal, family relationships, and family dynamics. Today, we're talking about rethinking, reassessing, and readjusting plans for elderly family members. Or maybe yourself if you're the person who needs care, or yourself if you are the caregiver. I'll share information about what I call extras, care privileges. And again, those early warning signs, those little red flags, so that you can avoid arriving at a breaking point where you feel so stressed out about caregiving, you feel like you can't just go on. Let's start with a couple of questions. Are you struggling with the thought that the care you provide to help your elderly parent stay at home just isn't working? Have you taken on too much responsibility for keeping your parents at home and taken away their responsibility for helping themselves? Are you at a breaking point where you realize that you can't keep doing more and more and more? There isn't enough of you to go around. There isn't enough time, and you're neglecting everything else in your life. Realizing that a care situation no longer works or that you can no longer be the caregiver can be a challenging point in family caregiving relationships. If you're a caregiver, the stress of caring for another person, it can be filled with fear, anxiety, worry, guilt, and doubt. These feelings, they can drown out your energy, optimism, and hope. But it doesn't have to be that way if you can stop and realize that you have a choice. You have an opportunity to rethink a care situation for elderly parents. While there are societal, cultural, and family pressures, you don't have to give in to what everyone else thinks that you should do. Reassessing caregiving relationships, or really any part of life on a regular basis, is a process that anybody can learn, that can offer strength and confidence to make necessary and thoughtful changes that can result in short and long-term improvements that may be a little impossible at the time you're making them. The challenge here is that if you've never done readjusting or reassessing or rethinking, this isn't a skill that you've learned in your life, then learning how to do this can be a little bit of a learning curve, but you can certainly do it. Wouldn't you rather be proactive, positive, hopeful, confident, instead of feeling overwhelmed by the constant work, worry, and responsibility of caregiving? Because when you think of it, after all, whose responsibility is self-care? Whose responsibility is caring for oneself? It's an individual responsibility. It's not a responsibility that anyone should put on another person, even though there are a lot of family expectations by parents around that for their adult children. If you're in one of those lopsided care situations where the time that you devote negatively impacts your health and well-being, this will eventually be harmful to you and your family, your job, everything in your life. There are so many benefits to rethinking, replanning, so that you can avoid the stress and the negativity that can result when in-home care for parents just stops working. Caregiving and life in general, it can be less stressful. So let's start by defining what reassessing a caregiving situation looks like. It means that you look at a decision that you made to provide care for your parents or hire caregivers, and you look to see, is it working or is it not working? Is it more beneficial, less beneficial? And the answers to these questions can change over time. So something that works today may not work in 3 months or 6 months. And decisions that you made based on facts that were true yesterday but are not true today can change. This is why the idea of rethinking and reassessing caregiving situations is critical for everybody in family care situations far in advance of increasing needs. Plan ahead 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. It's likely things will change, but at least you'll have a plan. Because the truth is, your body, my body, our minds, everything, it all changes with aging. Every time another year passes, everything's different. It can be different. And the thing to think about is there's a lot of things that can be done from a preventative standpoint for us as a caregiver, for our elderly parents, for our children, our family members. Prevention around exercise, healthy eating, healthy habits. Now, it's true something unexpected can and will always happen, but wouldn't you rather be proactive instead of reactive, which means that you're feeling that life is constantly out of control? So around these rethinking and reassessing discussions is resetting expectations. So maybe there was an expectation from your parent that you would help be the in-home caregiver or hire a care agency, and that worked for a period of time, but today it's just not working out. The care agency can't keep consistent staff. The caregivers keep changing. Sometimes they show up, sometimes they don't. If you're the caregiver, your parents want you to be over there 5 days a week after work, and that's no longer possible. There's so many things that make keeping elderly parents at home impractical and unsustainable. Now, these are practical things, right? If your parents want to stay in their home, they need to be the people putting forth the most effort. A lot of adult children find themselves in situations where they're doing so much that there's no way their elderly parents would be able to stay in that home without everything that they do. So basically what you've set up is you've set up an unsustainable situation that relies on you. You die tomorrow, you disappear tomorrow. Where then are your elderly parents? Who's going to show up to replace you? What if you don't have siblings? Or what if you have siblings that just really don't care and don't want to be involved? So in a sense, this good thing that you've done to help your parents stay at home really depends on you being available. Depends on you being there day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. Is that really practical? So let's talk for a second about trade-offs and harm. Trade-offs are the things that caregivers do to devote more time to caring for aging parents versus doing something else, like maybe paying attention to your health, your well-being, your job, your family relationships. Those trade-offs can potentially harm marriages, relationships with children, careers, your ability to save money and plan for your retirement. Obviously, if somebody has a lot of money, then these factors are probably not that big of a worry because people with money have what I call care privileges. That means that you can pay somebody to care for your spouse or an aging parent, pay for house cleaners, pay for somebody to do laundry, cook meals, grocery shop, pick up your kids from school, run errands and everything else. But, life today, not everyone is in that situation to have money for extra things or care privileges. And if you've been in that situation and your life is shifting, giving up those extras or care privileges, that can be really hard to do. And when we age, we will do this in some way. So elderly parents, they may live in a really nice home, but they can't take care of it anymore, right? So they can't mow the lawn, shovel the snow, they can't clean the house anymore. The house is just falling apart because they don't have the time, the energy, and sometimes the money to do that. So the home has become this problem, right? Now it has to be sold for an easier or more manageable or even more practical living environment. And people sometimes start to think about this after, retirement age, 65, 75, 85. It's best to think about it as early as possible and to be proactive as possible, because what you don't want to happen is you don't want to sell your home, move into another home, and then have a health issue, and all of a sudden you got to sell that home and move into assisted living or a nursing home. So health problems and health expenses grow after retirement, and this is a consideration that it's even hard to imagine until it happens. But if you look at today and everything that's gone up, groceries, electricity, gas for your car, that is representative of what it's like to be older and retired. And then you add a fixed income on top of that, more worry, more anxiety. So in a lot of care situations, rethinking and reassessing is actually a good thing so that everybody can have time to mentally adjust to the fact that this situation has to change. We need a new reality. We need a new normal. And this idea of adjusting, it only doesn't apply to elderly parents with health problems or houses they can't take care of. It really shows up at any time in life, right? You lose a job. You have no income. You have to live off savings. Or you lose a job and you get another job, but you didn't quite replace the income that you earned. And so in these situations, we have to do things we'd rather not do. Maybe we had a little higher standard of living or had some extra money, and now we don't, so we have to cut back. So relating this to health, right? Your parents have been healthy all their life. All of a sudden, they have this injury or this diagnosis, and now they can't do everything that they did. So these are red flags. They're early warning signs that even with in-home care, with family caregiver support, with caregivers going in, unless there are millions of dollars and money is readily available, these are red flags that mean it's time to start having conversations. So if you're the caregiver, are you exhausted? Do you have your own health problems? Are you more irritable, not sleeping? You're getting headaches, you're getting stomach aches. You're tired all the time. You don't have the energy to do anything for self-care. Maybe you had a doctor appointment and you canceled it because something else more important came up. Well, what is more important than your health? Maybe you're neglecting your family. You're having issues at work. All kinds of things happen when caregivers become exhausted and burned out. Then there's the money part. The financial costs for paying for in-home caregivers or some services that parents need, especially if they don't have the money to pay, really can become just too much. The parents can't afford to make the payments. The children can't afford to pay for the care. And so that financial and personal cost of providing in-home care by family members can become too great for just any one or any two or any three of a million reasons, right? Your elderly parents, they have more health issues. They're falling, they're forgetting to take their medications, they're losing weight because they're not eating. The house isn't clean. They have pets, they're not even taking care of the pets. And so what's happening is your parents becoming physically weaker, which means that they do need more hands-on care, either from you, the caregiver, or a friend or a paid caregiver. If they have memory loss, maybe that's getting worse. Or maybe they're going to the hospital emergency room more often. All of these changes from a regular routine are red flags. They are signs that it's time to start having conversations about what are we going to do next. Do we need to sell the home? Do we need to move parents into a better living environment? And while there are a lot of things that can be done to manage these declines before they happen, the unfortunate thing is most people are not that proactive. There's too much going on in their life. And so what you want to look at is, if you're the caregiver, what's going on? What's the situation? What's the reality? Is it truly realistic for you to continue to be the sole support of your parents to keep them at home if it's affecting your health and your well-being? Now, sometimes if something happens, we can do this, on a short-term basis, maybe for 3 or 4 weeks, right? Donate 100% of our time, dedicate 100% of our time to caring for elderly parents for short-term. But long-term, that's just not practical, even though your parents are saying, oh, we want to stay in our home. Well, the question is, I understand you want to stay in your home, but what are you willing to do to make that happen that doesn't involve me? That argument of, oh, we want to stay in our home no longer is practical when the person who wants to stay there needs a lot of help from other people. And if we're being honest about this, it's the pits. It's difficult because nobody wants to give up control over their life. Nobody wants to make changes. It's part of aging. It's a hard part of aging. So how do you move from being the caregiver who's helped your parents be at home when you realize that that's no longer working? So as I mentioned, it's some of these red flags, and it's also red flags that say, Mom or Dad, 3 or 6 months ago, you were doing all this stuff, and today there's not a lot that you can still do. How are you going to manage this 1 month or 2 months or 3 months from now if this pattern of doing less continues? Talk to your parent about their health problems and their medical appointments and what they're doing to manage that. Because sometimes the conversation has to be, well, Mom or Dad, it seems that based on these things, your health is getting worse. It's not getting better. And you need more help today than you needed 2 months ago. And I don't want to say this to make you feel bad, but what's going to happen? I can't always be here. And it doesn't seem that you can manage this yourself. And so this is where discussions around money and practicality and filing for Medicaid come up, and selling the home and moving out of a home and moving to assisted living communities. These are hard discussions to have when adult children caregivers have made it possible for their parents to stay in their home, but the parents aren't really able to continue to do that. So the best thing that you can do is to start having open conversations, very kind, very patient, very loving conversations with your parents to say, hey, this is what I'm noticing. Are you noticing this too? And hopefully they will be open to say, yeah, I know this is happening and I don't like it, but I don't know what to do about it. If there's ever a time where you don't know what to do about caring for aging parents, there is so much help on my website. It's PamelaDWilson.com. There are 3 online courses. There are articles. There are hundreds of videos on my YouTube channel. Just look for Pamela D Wilson. There are over 200 podcasts here on the Caring Generation that answer questions that caregivers ask. You can also go to my website, go into the Services tab, and schedule a one-on-one elder care consultation with me by telephone or by video call. I thank you all so much for being here. I'm Pamela D Wilson. I'm a caregiving expert and advocate. You're with me on the Caring Generation. Again, thank you so much for joining me for episode 228. Please take a minute right now. Do me a favor on your podcast app. Click the like button, follow the show, leave a comment if you've found any value from this episode so that other people can find their way here. I look forward to being with you all again soon. God bless you all. Sleep well tonight. Have a fabulous, fabulous day tomorrow, and enjoy each day until we are here together again.
Tune in each week for The Caring Generation with host Pamela D Wilson. Come join the conversation and see how Pamela can provide solutions and peace of mind for everyone. Here on Pamela D Wilson's The Caring Generation.